gardeners gossip, about the IPM, which will not be the case, and about the spring, which for sure will come.
Welcome to Gardeners Radio by Lubera Edibles, the podcast for professional gardeners. We are talking about edible plants.
As we all know, this year we will have no IPM show, so that's the one time in a year every gardener is in Essen in Germany and looking at the leader show about plants, and there we normally have the possibility to have discussions, to speak with our customers, with friends, and this year that will not be possible. So as a replacement, we have thought to do this podcast. My name is Markus Kobelt. I'm founder and breeder of Lubera.com in Switzerland and in Germany. And I have two guests with me. First is Frederik Vollert. Frederik, can you say who you are and what you are doing?
My name is Frederik Vollert, and I work for Lubera Edibles. And there I'm responsible for the product development.
And Robert Meyerhofer?
Yeah, my name is Robert Meyerhofer. I'm nursery manager in our Swiss nursery. We're producing finished plant for the home garden market. I'm also deputy of Markus.
Okay, so everything is perfect without me. So what is the goal of this podcast and podcast series? Some first words only, remarks. We tried to do a podcast. It's Gardeners Radio, Lubera Edible Gardeners Radio, for B2B. So we are producing a gardeners podcast for gardeners, for professional gardeners, out of the perspective of Lubera Edibles, our young plant company, who is producing young plants for professional gardeners who are producing then finished plants or bigger young plants for the end market. And for this public, we are producing this podcast series. I think the first series will be about 10 podcasts we're producing this spring, and they will be aired in the next 10 days. And this is the only podcast in this series with gossip. And afterwards, we will talking plants. But now, gossip. Everybody, the elephant in the room is COVID. So everybody, with every phone we are discussing about COVID and the impact for our business. What are you thinking about the coming season, Frederik?
So I'm very optimistic for this upcoming season. It's the situation at the moment is very close to spring last year. At the moment we are a little bit earlier with current lockdown. In Germany and all it's a lockdown also for garden centers and DIY stores. But in the case of young plant production and selling young plants, we are on the planning. So we producing as planned, as scheduled, our young plants, and we also ship our young plants as planned.
So. Robert, COVID impact for our business?
Oh, it's hard to say for me now because we are in English now and the situation in the countries are different, I think. So it's hard to say which country the season how will work. But I think generally could be the same as last year. So I think the plants will find the way to the customers. But which way it is, I don't know. I think the online boom will continue, and how the market is on the garden center and DIY stores, I don't know.
Okay, I think you said we are earlier with lockdown. That's a good thing, but the bad thing about it could be that we have time for a second lockdown.
Could be, yeah.
So that could be a danger. I think, in my opinion, it's very important that when you are working with your customers, as we are working with our customers, that we have a good outlook in the future. We are speaking about it. I think we have to do our logistic homework to be prepared for the season, also when they should start a little bit later. I think the biggest problem is if everything will be postponed on the timeline. Because then, if everything is postponed, if the garden centers, the stores are empty in March, April, it will not be possible to fill them logistically and to fulfill the actual demand for plants. So that was a little bit the situation last year. So I think we should be better. Also, when there will be a little bit of risk to bring plants to the front, to the garden centers, to the shops, in a lockdown situation or in the end of the lockdown situation, we should do it if possible, because otherwise we will not be prepared for the season, because the demand for plants, I think we are all sure about it, will explode. So when we look at last year and the outlook for this year, do we have a plant boom right now?
Of course. So last spring, every garden center, every nursery, of course, and we as a young plant company were sold out of plants. So everybody was last year was buying plant, and because of the close situation this year, I think the plant boom is also going on this year.
Robert, plant boom, and how sustainable is this plant boom?
Yes, I think we have a plant boom. I'm in the in the business now since I don't know exactly 20 years now, and I think it was never sold out as last year in our business in the green market. Also, I'm buying in young plants in roses and shrubs and things like that. I think it was never so hard to get young plants at this season. So we have a boom. I'm not sure how long it takes. I think for edibles, for berries and fruit trees and also vegetables, it will take for a longer time, the boom, because the people want to grow her own fruit and vegetables.
But why?
Because they learned it now in the COVID years. To make it, they get a new hobby. I think the fruit and vegetable industry is getting so far away from the people that a lot of people want to know how it works, how berries growing, how a tomato is growing in his own garden.
Okay, that's very happy news for the founder of Lubera, and I just want to remark that we have some demographic realities we have to think about. So in Middle Europe, the people are becoming older. So the part of the very old population is growing. We always thought that an older becoming population is good for our garden business because they are gardening. Yes, they are, but they are not indefinitely. I think with 75, 80, they are stopping to garden. So we have not the whole old population for our market. And I think this will not change. There will always be. I've seen in my own family, with my father, with my mom, sometimes they stopped gardening. And they had a gardener helping them in the garden, and they didn't plant any new plants anymore. So that's a reality. So if we want to have our business stable, at least, we have to find younger gardeners. Otherwise, it's not possible. And of course, in this younger population, I also think that edible plants, to have control over what I'm eating, I'm taking inside myself. That's really something very interesting when you are going to a bookstore, if you are going to a bookstore anymore. If you are going to a bookstore, you see that the cooking books are about threefold the number of the gardening books. But in thinking on edible plants, it's the same thing. Yeah? Edible plants you have to cook. And so that's really a trend. We want to control what we are taking in. And I think that's very natural. But again, to have a stable or growing customer base, we have to have newer customers. And I think for them, we cannot hope that all of them become really addict gardeners. I think the big group will be gardeners who like gardening, for whom gardening is important, but it's not the most important thing of the world. It's a side thing, but an important side thing. And I think we have to develop solutions for these type of people. So that's my remarks. But if you look at our businesses, at our companies, how we are preparing for this boom, next year, over next year, long time boom perhaps, if we are able to sell more edible plants. What is Lubera Edible and the production company behind Meyer doing?
At the moment, we are planning on a new cold storage. This new cold storage has 3 times the space of our current cold storage, so we can store more young plants in winter to keep them dormant into spring, to have the greenhouses free and empty for the spring propagated plant. And also in our facility, in our micropropagation facility in Hungary, we have planning to increase there the propagation.
Preparing for the future, Robert, at Lubera?
Yes, we're also working on it. We built a greenhouse in our German nursery for packaging and also production. The work is almost done or has to be
finished in 2 weeks.
in a few weeks to start in a new season. And also we're working in Switzerland to planning a new very big greenhouse for us. But it takes time, and I think we will have to work 2 to 3 years on it until it's finished.
Okay, thank you very much. So, are you preparing for the spring, which is coming for sure? That's a question you have to answer yourself. We thank you for hearing Gardeners Radio. Hope that you are hearing in again. And go on gardening and have a fruitful day. Thanks for hearing Gardeners Radio by Lubera Edibles. You find us on every platform for podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and of course on our website www.luberaedibles.com. Go on gardening.